Welcome to the Good Word. My name is Vincent Goodwill, senior NBA reporter for Yahoo Sports. A bit of business before we get into today's show. Of course, we are on YouTube, so don't forget, rate, review, subscribe to us there, as well as all the places you consume your audio podcast. My man Dan Titus is joining us today on the show. Dan, how does hosting feel? How does the intro and outros feel doing the show, brother?
I mean, you are a certified pro, so when I step in the arena, it's like, hold up, lights is bright. But I kind of settled into it, man. But no, I don't have you. You got that. This is why it's Good Word with Goodwill, because you are the guy.
It takes time. Don't worry about it, brother. It takes time. It takes time. But we are in the middle of the summer, y'all. It ain't a whole lot going on, so we just gonna have some fun here. And this is where this is kind of the points where you start having these levels of conversations. Because of the offseason, we're trying to figure out what players are going to make jumps going into next season, whether it's new player, old situation, new player, new situation, player going into year 4, whatever it is. And we're just going to have some fun with that. So I'm going to start with you, Dan. Is there a player in particular that you're looking at and you're like, man, this guy is primed to make a leap next season?
First name that comes to mind, Andrew Nembhard, with Tyrese Haliburton out for the rest of the season, more than likely the rest of next season.
Yes.
Nembhard is probably going to be the guy that's going to be the engine of the offense. They're going to play through Pascal Siakam too, but I think we're going to see that big leap in Andrew Nembhard. It's going to be a very important year for him. He's going to become rookie extension eligible. Not only that, I mean, if you look at the numbers with him, with Tyrese Haliburton off the floor, his usage rate goes up by 8% to like around 22. We could see that jump to 25, maybe 28. And then he's averaging 14 points with 7 assists without Haliburton on the floor throughout his career. So I think that that's the person that I'm kind of pegging right now. Most improved player, taking that leap to kind of keep Indiana, I would say, on the brink of relevancy in the East. Like, they're not going to be what they were last year, but they're still obviously going to be a playoff team because their team is still super deep.
It's an interesting thing when you look at a guy like Nembhard, when you look at the Pacers as a whole. Like, we're so easily writing them off, right?
Yeah.
And I won't say write them off at your own peril, but when you lose Miles Turner and then you lose Tyrese Haliburton for the whole season, that changes the trajectory of everything that you do in the offseason. They're going to lean a lot on Pascal Siakam. They're going to lean a lot on, like you said, maybe Ben Mathurin is a guy that I think of, and I'm like, that's a guy that I'm looking at, and I'm saying, he is super talented, super gifted, really ornery. And I say that with all of the affection as far as being like super competitive. He gets under guys' skin. You got to see him when he had a game, when he has a game, it lifts the Pacers. Now is going to be, he's going to be in a spot where he can't just afford to have a game. He's got to bring those games every night just to keep things competitive. And I think I'm with you. I look at Nembhard because he's a point guard, essentially. He just plays a lot more off the ball when Haliburton is there. But Haliburton is not a ball-dominant point guard. So it's almost like you have 2 point guards in your backcourt anyway. I like Nembhard. I like the toughness. Remember, he was the guy who was guarding Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in game 1 and forced that miss, which opened the door to Tyrese Haliburton hitting the game winner. So do you look at him and saying numbers, or you look at him and saying like effect as far as how he's going to perform next year?
I think it's a combination of both, because if you go back, I mean, even last year's playoff run, he was instrumental in that, and the Pacers getting to how far they went last year. So you couple that with the next year, he just came back and did the exact same thing. His confidence in his midi, he can play make. To your point, he was playing a lot off ball, but I think we're going to see so much more attention to him because he's going to be getting that those more minutes. And TJ McConnell will obviously still play a role and have his impact off the bench. But, you know, I think Rick Carlisle and the Pacers have done a really good job of building a team that not only has the chemistry, but then they're also putting them in positions to be successful. And I think the way that they brought along Andrew Nembhard, he's going to be ready for this uptick in usage and opportunity that he probably wasn't afforded before. Like, yeah, he was starting, but when you have Tyrese Haliburton on the floor, it's just a kind of a different, it's a different system. So I'm really encouraged to see what he's going to be bringing this year coming up.
Yeah, Ben Mathurin is one of my guys. Like, I know it's not like the sexiest name. Nobody's coming to hear about the Indiana Pacers and what guys they got sleeping, you know what I mean, as a sleeper. But I think he's someone that warrants a lot of consideration here for the very reasons I listed earlier. And yeah, the things changed when he went to the bench, but that was the dynamic of last year's team. Right. He came off the bench during the second half of last year. His numbers dipped a little bit in the playoffs because that's just what happens sometimes when Rick Carlisle becomes heavily more dependent on vets, and you can't afford to have a young player get in foul trouble in some of those situations, some bad matchups along the way. But he's going to have the runway. I think when you look at him, when you look at Neesmith, you're going to have guys who have the runway to play, to be able to afford to make mistakes. And not necessarily that it's a low pressure situation, because I don't want to say it's that. It's not a low pressure situation, but it's a situation where you don't have to look over your shoulder when you have 2 or 3 bad plays in a row, or you have a turnover and a missed shot. Usually that could be the time for Carlisle to pull you out. Now you can see Ben Mathurin as a ball handler in the pick and roll. You can see him playing with Pascal Siakam and seeing if their chemistry can develop just with more usage and more opportunity to play. So Ben Mathurin is a guy for me. Like, there's another guy, but Ben Mathurin is a guy for me. Do you have somebody else, or is that just your one?
Yeah, I was thinking also Ausar Thompson. I mean, Amen Thompson, I think, has already kind of arrived here, and the Houston Rockets are already second. I mean, they're second odds on favorite to win the Western Conference.
Yes.
I think his breakout was already there, but I think the Sarr leap is what's really going to propel the Detroit Pistons to be. Are they going to be a 6 seed, or are they going to be like a 3 seed?
Are you stealing the next segment? Just tell me you're still in the next segment. Go ahead. Just tell me you're still in the next segment.
But I had to show love to because the thing about Ausar, I think he's been kind of overlooked because he dealt with the blood clot injury, and he kind of came on midseason. Obviously, there was some change not only in the front office, but with the player personnel, with Tobias Harris coming in there. With Detroit not doing too much in making a big splash in the offseason, they brought in Duncan Robinson, they brought in Karis LeVert. I don't know that that's going to stunt the growth of Ausar Thompson. So if you're looking at a two-way player that can take this next level leap, this is the year that I think we're going to see Ausar Thompson kind of be more closer to what we saw of Amen last year. I think his shot's going to be better, not going to be great, but it's still going to be improved. He can play make, he can get out in space, create in transition, and he's just a menace on defense. So that's the guy that I'm really keen in on Detroit, that I think could be that X factor for them to go to that next level if they're going to take it there.
So, y'all, this is what happens when sometimes you don't completely prep together on stuff, because, somebody may have some microphone difficulties and things of that nature, so you can't get into it.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, completely. We're going to talk about Ausar Thompson later. We're going to dig a little deeper into Ausar Thompson later, because we're going to talk about that particular team. A guy that I'm thinking about, and I agree with everything you said about Ausar Thompson. I think he's going to be in the most improved category, if not a bunch of other categories that we select teams on. What do you think about Alex Sarr in Washington? Second year, I know it's Washington. Nobody pays attention to them because they're the Wizards, and now they're trying to be Oklahoma City, like west, east, southeast, right? That's where the Wizards play. I'm always curious about first-year players going into their second year, and a big thing for me is first-year player going into second year. How did you perform in the second half All-Star break of your first year? Now, he still got to put on weight. You got to make sure he's playing in the absolute right position, optimal situation. But with Oklahoma, I keep calling them Oklahoma City, but they're Washington. They keep doing things that's Oklahoma City like.
OKC-esque, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to take on players and get picks. We're going to take on vets and try to establish a culture. That's why you wound up getting, Chris Middleton over there. You know what I mean? Like that's the reason.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, CJ McCollum now with that big, $50 million price tag. You're going to have vets that, if nothing else, show you how to play and are going to be invested in your success because their money is already set. They're not going to be playing for, the next big money contract, so to speak. Alex Sarr, just because of his physical makeup, I want to see him put on some weight. I want to see him have some better, shot selection. Sometimes he had trouble with not necessarily length, but girth around the rim. Like, bigger guys seem to affect him a little bit. Usually guys that are that young You know what I mean, Dan? Guys who are that young and they're coming into the league and they're foreign, it takes them a year or two to really get it. Maybe I'm jumping on it a year early, and usually that's what I've been. I've been the guy throughout my career that is, I'll jump on you a year early. I'll give you the most improved tech a year before you maybe really quote unquote deserve it. But I'd rather be that guy than say, yeah, I saw it all along, but I won't gonna say it. No, I'm calling my shot now. I think this kid is gonna be good.
Yeah, I mean, so he was one of the players that I was really curious to watch in Summer League. And, he broke the Summer League record for most blocks in a game with 8. But I think it was his shot selection that, to me, looked a bit improved. It looked more tactical, more thought out. It wasn't just coming down the court and chucking. Now, granted, the Washington Wizards, coming off having Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma, their system was of this chucking variety. So like walking into that situation probably wasn't best for him to kind of read the game and make those decisions. Now that they're reshaping the roster akin to, the Oklahoma City Thunder, I think we should see a leap in Alex Sarr. I'm encouraged, like defensively, I think he's fine. Right.
Yes.
It's the offensive game where I'm like curious, like, where is he? He's kind of he doesn't really bang in the post enough. So like, is he more of like a shooter? Is he going to be popping out for 3, taking those mid range, at the nail kind of shots there in the midi? I think he could take the leap, but I think the Washington Wizards are a team, like if we're looking, not to foreshadow, but if we're looking for a team to make the biggest improvement in terms of record from the previous year, I think they're going to be in that conversation because I think they're going to be better than a lot of people think.
Well, it's hard to be worse. It's hard to be worse. It's hard to be worse than people thought.
It's hard to be worse. Yeah. So I mean, it's not going to be an all-star leap. It's not going to be, but he could be a most improved conversation if we lock it, because like their front court isn't that intimidating for him not to make an impact in his third year. So. Yeah, I like the call. I think it's a bit early, but I could see it happening if the Wizards improve. And it's going to be off the strength of him and obviously Bilal Coulibaly taking a big leap. And we'll see how Trey Johnson kind of fits in there as their primary bucket getter, which I think he'll – actually, the one sleeper, actually, now that you're on the Wizards, they got me thinking. Keyshawn George, I think that they need to make him point guard, and I think that that's what could unlock that best version of Alex Sarr.
Yeah.
To some degree, because that's – They toyed around with it a little bit last year, and they did it a little bit in the summer league. And I think we saw he looks more naturally fit for that position to me than Bub Carrington, who I think is solid. But I don't know. I feel like it just makes them more dynamic when they have Keyshawn George in that position. And I don't know. This is a really exciting team. Like I don't know what to expect, but I think they're going to be better than they were last year.
Well, it's hard to be worse than 18 wins. And we've always seen the Wizards on this sort of Looney Tunes sort of, they're a team that can't get right sort of thing. Like, all right, cool. They stripped it down to the studs. And if there's a place that you can do it, it's there because there's not a whole lot of basketball tradition when it comes down to it. I think the one playoff series that they've won in my memory was Gilbert Arenas beating the Chicago Bulls in 2005. Now, I know they've won some series with John Wall and Brad Beal. They got to the second round. I think in 2015 and 2017, took it to Game 7 in both of those series against Atlanta and against Boston, but could never get past that glass ceiling of getting to the Eastern Conference Finals. And, some years after that, some failures, you go back to the drawing board and you strip it down and you see what you can do. And that's what Will Dawkins and Michael Winger over there have done. And we'll see what happens in year 2 of a very, very early process. With that being said, teams that you expect to take a leap next season, who stands out for you? Because there's always somebody.
There's always somebody. I mean, I think the most obvious one would probably be the San Antonio Spurs. There's no way that they're going to be as bad as they were last year, where they have 34 wins. We could be looking at a 42 to 45 win team. I think they're going to be better. This is all hinges on the health of Victor Wembanyama. But, they obviously got the second pick in the draft in Dylan Harper. I'm really curious to see how that meshes with De'Aaron Fox. 2 guys have been labeled non-shooters playing on the floor together. But I like what I've seen from Jeremy Sohan in the offseason. His jumper looks way more improved. It's crazy how this guy was shooting, one-handed free throws, and now he's finally got his form together. So I like what they did in acquiring Luke Cornett, to kind of shore up that front court. I think this team's going to be better. And I think if you're looking at the Western Conference from teams 6 through 12, I think it's pretty much an open landscape of who can take that spot. And I think that the San Antonio Spurs can certainly be that if Victor Wembanyama is healthy and they can take that next leap. I think they can definitely take that next leap.
Look, considering we were just talking about the Washington Wizards and how their team can't get right, we got team can't get right squared. Can't believe I'm saying this. Cannot believe I'm saying this. And if I'm wrong, we're going to strike this from the record. This will be stricken from the record.
I have a feeling of what team you're going to talk about, and I was going to mention them too. So I hope it is this.
The Magic City Atlanta Hawks. That's where I'm going. That's where I'm going. They added Nickeil Alexander-Walker. They traded for Kristaps Porzingis. They signed Luke Kennard on a value deal. Like, in addition to having the Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnsons, you know what I mean? Like, in addition to having, once again, the #1 draft pick last year in Zachary Ricochet, like, you have the bones of, if nothing else, really long, really versatile, defensive-minded menaces on that team. Maybe not Luke Kennard, but you get what I'm saying. And we've talked about this before in this podcast with Trae Young, and all the numbers always look good, right? All the assists, all the highlight plays, you know, the nutmegs and everything else. We're going to see now, not can you necessarily just play winning basketball, can you lead? Like, that is going to be the question. Can you lead? Can you make sacrifices to make sure that it's not just about the assists? Because sometimes people feel like, well, his assists are up, so that means he sacrificed. It doesn't necessarily mean that. Sometimes the assist means you have to be the person feeding everybody, and everybody's not able to necessarily feed themselves, and you can be the decoy that the defense has to watch out for because you're moving without the ball, and a defense has to account for you because you're one of the greatest shooters on earth. But I just look at that. I look at Dyson Daniels, who I love, and I look at Kristaps Porzingis, assuming he's over what he was under during the playoffs.
We don't know. We don't
know, right? We don't know. But assuming he's over that, I'm fascinated by what the Atlanta Hawks can bring.
I just think their depth, bringing in Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and like as much as I think Luke Kennard is a solid player off the bench because he's like an underrated creator, playmaker who can also be a deadly shooter, 40% plus from 3-point range. I just think that they built a great team around Trae Young, and I think that that's always been the discourse around why can't Atlanta do this. I mean, yeah, they did make that one improbable run to the Eastern Conference Finals, but since then it's been like, what's up with Trae? And I think there's been a lot of misplaced blame. And now I feel like now that they've brought in Kristaps Porzingis on an expiring deal, we can see it didn't really cost much to acquire him. You still have Onyeka Okongwu, who's going to be, I think, a really nice table setter for whenever Kristaps Porzingis is inevitably going to miss time.
Right.
And then it's like Jalen Johnson was on breakout watch last year until he got hurt. That's always been his problem, is that he couldn't stay on the court. So if all things go correctly and in order, this team should be a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference. And they could probably push for more than that.
Yeah, and once again, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, a veteran.
Who comes
huge
there.
Pickup. Huge pickup, can play both guard spots, can defend, can shoot. That's what you need. Absolutely. As far as with that stuff goes. Now to a fun part of today's program. Thank producer Dakota for this, and thank me for making an adjustment to all of this. We're going to do something called, we're going to make the case. And I'm going to make the case for the team in the city that I currently reside in, Detroit. And Dan is going to make a case for his hometown, Philadelphia 76ers. This was originally titled, Make the Case for This Team to Win the Title. I said, scrap that.
Nah,
because that's not realistic. Let's make it more realistic. Make the case, Dan, for the Philadelphia 76ers to get through the Eastern Conference, to get to the Eastern Conference Finals, and to get through that to the NBA Finals. Make the case.
It's health contingent. Right now, the
that's
Joel
all? That's all this is health? Are you sure?
I think it's health. It's health at this point because right now their back is against the wall. We don't know truly how healthy Joel Embiid is right now. All we know is that he's supposed to be ready for training camp. I'm taking Daryl Morey and the staff at their word at this point. If he's ready for training camp and Paul George gets reevaluated and everything looks great at training camp, let's go. You already don't have to worry about the Boston Celtics this year, which was probably one of your biggest gatekeepers to ever getting past that, to winning that Eastern Conference Finals. You got a playoff with the Indiana Pacers. You get them out of there. The Knicks, they sent you home in 7 games, and that was brutal to the franchise. So now you can get your lick back. Then it's just the Orlando Magic and the Atlanta Hawks, who don't have a lot of playoff experience. So if you're looking at in totality of this Sixers roster, Joel Embiid, Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, solid trio. You got Jerry McCain coming back off of an injury. He was in the running for Rookie of the Year last year before he got hurt, so get him in there. VJ Edgecombe already bringing a lot of energy off the bench that they could definitely use. And, I just think that this team, with the Eastern Conference landscape the way that it is, if everything breaks right and Embiid plays at least 50 games and kind of remains healthy by the time the playoffs start, they have a chance to get to the Eastern Conference Finals and win it. Now, the realist in me says that ain't happening at all. I'm encouraged by what they've done in the offseason. I mean, I'm assuming that they're going to re-sign Quentin Grimes because that's going to be huge for them. If they can do that, they could be at least a 6 seed, and then as long as Embiid is healthy going into the playoffs, they got it. If that doesn't happen, well, hey, they better hope that they turn it off. They got to turn off the faucet quick because they got a top 4 protected right now that's going to the Oklahoma City Thunder. So if they don't think that they're going to win this, they need to pull the plug early and try to just tank again, and hopefully they can get a top 4 pick in what's going to be a really good draft. But I don't know. They could be screwed.
They could be screwed. Yeah, that's the bottom line. But they could be screwed. I think, look, VJ Edgecombe, I think Paul George is that's a question mark for me. Another surgery, another injury coming into training camp. And these guys are sneaky old. We only think of LeBron, Steph, and KD as old. Everybody else is getting old too, and Paul George is one of those dudes, right?
He's like, 30, going on 34, 35?
Yeah. It's just what it is. These
knee injury that he had, that was the knee injury that caused him problems last year. So
it happens. It happens. Now for a more optimistic point of view, ladies and gentlemen. The Detroit Pistons can make a run to the Eastern Conference Finals this year. They can. And they can because Dakota told me they could, right? And here's why. Here's why they can. Because now the Jaden Ivey injury last year opened the door to Ausar Thompson, who we talked about earlier here, for Ausar Thompson to become a starter and to have the runway and the minutes to be a two-way menace. That kid is a menace. He got bad kid energy. And I say bad kid energy in all the good ways. Like, he's like the nice twin out of him and a man. Like, just like he's the one that's a little more nice, but and a man is more of like a little more of the gangster kind of. But I think he's got that same meanness in him. I think what happened last year, or what happened a couple months ago, with that Jalen Brunson moment, that fuels that kid. That completely fuels that kid. And if you're going to tell me Isaiah Stewart is back, if you're going to tell me that Jaden Ivey, who did not play in the new year at all, no, he got hurt on New Year's Day against the Orlando Magic when Cole Anthony decided that he was playing football and wanted to dive
Reckless.
into lower leg extremities. If you tell me that you find a way, and here's the key thing for me with those two guys, because Cade Cunningham is an all-NBA second-team type of ball player and could take another leap this year. Let's just assume that he makes a marginal improvement and becomes a better three-point shooter in transition, a better off the catch, all that type of stuff. Just marginal improvement considering the leap that he made last year. If you're telling me that the two change of pace guys, Jaden Ivey, who goes end to end, and then Ausar Thompson, who can be maybe one of the 3 or 4 best perimeter defenders in basketball next year, then yeah, I can make the case for all that stuff. Yeah, the Malik Beasley stuff hurts. It hurts a lot. It hurts in a number of different ways. It hurts the franchise. It hurts them. It hurts the continuity, all that stuff. Karis LeVert does not stay healthy. Duncan Robinson is going to be a economical shooter for them that you can depend on him just hitting shots, basically replacing Tim Hardaway and LeVert replacing Malik Beasley, and you mix and match and you figure out however that goes. Can you count on Tobias Harris having another, bounce back season like he had? Maybe, but he's, 36 years old, if I remember correctly. So you're worried about that stuff. And it's funny, we're talking about Tobias in Detroit when Tobias in Philly couldn't do right. Could not do right. He couldn't do right.
And literally Philly's like, yo, bring Tobias back because this ain't Paul George.
This ain't it.
This
ain't it. This ain't it. This ain't it. So yeah, I legit think that if JB Bickerstaff can find a way, don't forget Ron Holland going into year 2 as well. I think his leap might come in year 3, but I think he's going to make, once again, improvement there. But the improvement internally that they can make, that they are keeping their powder dry. Jaden Ivey's going into a restricted year. Jalen Duren's going into a restricted year. You're going to have to make big-time decisions on both, and they will have the cap space to be able to get both as long as both players aren't on maxes. And if you get both players who play like max players, then you got a really good problem to have. But I don't know if they're going to have that. But if all things are created equal, like you said, if Jaden Ivey's there in the first round of the playoffs, they win that series. If Isaiah Stewart is there in the first round of the playoff series, they beat the Knicks, and who knows where things go from there. That is the case that I'm making for the Detroit Pistons. I can't believe I just did that.
You got a way easier assignment, though. I can rock with that one. Sixers? Nah.
Possibly so. We'll be right back. Back here on The Good Word with Dan Titus. Dan, I'm not sure if you saw, Tyrese Haliburton was wheeled on to the Pat McAfee show the other day where he talked about, his injury and that really grueling scene in Oklahoma City in Game 7 where we all saw the Achilles basically pop and go out on him. And the discussion comes up, and I feel like it comes up every year, and I feel like it's time to debunk the nonsense. Are NBA players playing too many games? Would a less than 82 game season prevented Tyrese Haliburton from straining his calf and then tearing his Achilles in the last game of the season? I know where I sit on it. I think it's ridiculous that we're talking about shortening the season or anybody else or players playing too many basketball during the regular season. But what say you?
I mean, I think it's not the length of the season. I think it's the pace of play, the style of play. And this goes back to probably AAU levels of players just putting too much load on their bodies. And it's a different game. The twitchiness, the explosion of just the way that they play. I think there's a lot of factors that go into play here, but I don't think shortening the season, number one, the Board of Governors would never approve of that. There's just too much money to be made.
Exactly.
So in my opinion, what needs to be done this is why depth and roster building is so critical. And maybe you expand the rosters, or maybe this goes into the expansion conversation that, I don't know, that's been put on hold for 3 years, but we got to expand the rosters because there's just going to be more frequent injuries like this. I think Tyrese Haliburton knew the risks of what he was doing. He got a calf injury. If you're going to push a calf injury, there's only one way that's going to, maybe you can force it and make it through, or you're going to snap your Achilles. It's happened before. Kevin Durant, other examples of that in the course of basketball history. But I think we're going to see it at a younger age now. Tyrese Haliburton is very young, so he has a very good chance to rehabilitate, maybe change his game a little bit, come back stronger. It's going to be a bigger question for the guys that are a little bit older, like Damian Lillard. Who's the other one?
Jason Tatum is right at the line.
Still pretty young. I think he's right. He's still pretty young. So I consider it more bad luck and just bad process overall in the basketball ecosystem of these kids are playing way too young. And then as you get to the professional level, the wear and tear is just too much.
I need people to understand this because you just said it. I need people to understand this. And there are a lot of smart people shorten the season. You know what's not going to happen? Even if you shorten this, let's say you did shorten the season, right? Because the league has done everything to get players more rest throughout the course of the season. There's fewer back-to-backs, fewer 3 and 4s, longer All-Star break, all the things, right? And players still get hurt because the human body ain't built for this stuff. And the human body's not built for the age of specialization when players are playing one sport from the point that they're 10 years old because their parents and their AAU coaches see dollar signs and you got to get to the money. And that's where we are, unfortunately, with all of this nonsense. It's nonsense. It's not on the NBA to regulate what they do because players are coming in with pre-existing conditions. Players are coming into the NBA. When you look at their medicals at the combine and you talk to people in the league, they say players have more wear and tear on their bodies at this point than any other point. And think about this. When we grew up, and I ain't that old, y'all, so y'all can, I know I stay in the craze, but I ain't that old. Players in my generation, we played outside. We played on the concrete. These guys are playing on the hardwood. That's an easier surface to play on. So it's not about necessarily, well, you guys had it easier. No, we actually didn't have it easier. We're just not playing 7, 8, 9, 10 games a day with AAU or practicing with trainers for 3 hours a day and everything else. Like, this is old man yelling at cloud. Have your kids play soccer. Have them play football. Have them play baseball. Have them do something else besides working that one singular muscle for every year from the point that they're 8 or 9 years old before their bodies, are fully developed. I think it's a very simple thing. It's now in the NBA to say, hey, we should take less money. We should give you less because all these entities are combining to conspire, whether they realize it or not, and making this a worse product. And here's where the NBA, not the NBA, but here's where it gets tricky. All of these offenses are geared towards, let's get our best player to have the highest usage possible. So you're going to have the wear and tear plus the extra load to make sure that, hey, we're not dumping the ball to this big plotting center down there. That's 0.05 points per possession. That's not very efficient. You know what it does? It takes the wear and tear off your point guard. It takes the wear and tear off your star to have to create every single play all the time. And I think that's something that's gone missing in the way of the professional game. You brought it up in terms of the pace of the game. It's so friggin' fast. And so maybe we just don't need to play that fast. Maybe we need to play a little slower for the betterment of the game, for the betterment of everybody else. Rant over, segment over. We'll be back for the last word. It's time for the last word. There was something on the rundown, and I was like, no, we're not doing that. I scratched that like LeBron scratched David Blatt drawing up a play for somebody else in the 2015 Eastern Conference semifinals against the Bulls. I scratched that play. Sorry, Dakota. It just came out from TMZ that Hulk Hogan passed away at age 71. Now, for many of you, you know Hulk Hogan as a real American who said some real crazy things over the past several years. He's been caught on tape saying. But for many of us, this has been like, wow, this is our childhood in some ways. Not to say stripped away, that's not the right word. But in some ways, our childhood had complicated factions to it. When did you get into pro wrestling, Dan Titus? When did you get into it? And was Hulk Hogan like your guy?
That was the intro to it. It was him, Ultimate Warrior, Coco Beware. That was like my pops guy.
Oh, wow.
It's throwbacks. But the thing about Hulk Hogan, man, like he was never really that entertaining of a wrestler. It was just everything that he brought, like the cinema of it. The NWO factor of Hulk Hogan to me was like the pinnacle of like, all right, I rock with this guy, because the whole NWO era of wrestling was really dope. The Attitude Era.
It changed everything. It changed everything.
Absolutely did. So his impact in wrestling can't be understated. I even had I maybe had a wrestling buddy when I was a kid of Hulk Hogan. Like I was a Hulk Hogan guy for a minute.
You were a Hulkamaniac. It's okay. He was a Hulkamaniac. No, the weird thing for me was when I thought wrestling was real. Yeah. Right? And the Undertaker tombstoned him at Joe Louis Arena in Detroit. That was Survivor Series.
Survivor Series, yeah.
That's when I first was like into it. And I was like, and I saw it and I was like, he broke Hulk Hogan's neck. You know, like that type of thing. Say your prayers, your vitamins, all that type of stuff. And the commercials were pretty cool. The intro, the music was really cool, all that type of stuff. You know what I mean? Then you find out, that wrestling ain't real. Like, not that it's not real. It's not that wrestling isn't real, because the stuff that you see, the athleticism of it is real. It is scripted.
The script.
It is scripted. That's the thing. The NWO stuff, that was like one of those where were you moments. Even if you didn't have, pay-per-view, you didn't watch it. You didn't watch Bash at the Beach in '96 or whatever, but you heard, right? That's what I think is what it was. That's what I think what it was.
Yeah, it was.
Bash at the Beach in '96, like all that type of stuff. Like even if you didn't have it, you heard about it later. You're like, man, Hulk Hogan did what? He turned?
That was the craziest heel turn of all time, probably.
Craziest heel turn. And then it birthed Stone Cold, The Rock, like when WWF caught up with WCW and everything else, and it turned into something like really special, like he trendsetter and all those other different things. and then you remember the trials, the videos, the TMZs.
Everything after him leaving wrestling, don't co-sign that Hulk Hogan at all. But he had a moment where he was like that.
Well, I will say this. All the things made him a real American. That, ladies and gentlemen, is my man, Dan Titus. Dan's going to be joining me throughout the summer here on The Good Word, Yahoo Sports. Dan, appreciate you, brother.
Always been.
Thanks to producer Dakota, who put together this wonderful rundown behind the scenes on this show. I'll be back next week for another episode of The Good Word. Until then, everybody be safe.
You don't have to agree, but you have to click subscribe. Debate lives here. Yahoo Sports is where the conversation starts. Bring your takes to the comments.